great pleasure to have Jen Cross here with us tonight. Jen is a writer and workshop facilitator based in the SF Bay Area. She's the author of Writing Ourselves Whole, Using the Power of Your Own Creativity to Recover and Heal from Sexual Trauma, Mango 2017, and co-editor of the award-winning Sex Still Spoken Here, CSC Press 2014. Her writing appears in more than 50 anthologies and periodicals, including Nobody Passes, The Healing Art of Writing 2010, Make/Shift Visible, a Femthology, Volume 1, and Best Sex Writing 2008. An adjunct lecturer with JFK University, she's also an MFA candidate in creative writing at San Francisco State University. And her website is writingourselveswhole.org. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks. I guess I really need to include the part about being a student at San Francisco State.
Everyone does.
Not, I mean, like in general, yes, but maybe not. Maybe I could have edited it for here. Hi, happy National Coming Out Day. I'm so excited. Yay. I was like, where's my thing? I forgot. Okay, how's everybody?
Good.
Happy Wednesday. I'm so glad y'all are here. It's really nice to be here. I feel a little disconnected from my creative writing community, and so thanks for this invitation and for this ass kicking to get here. It's good. This is a thing that I published. And I think possibly I should do some research. The longest subtitle. I was like, could it be this? No. Could it be this? No. And then my editor was like, what if it's this? Okay, let's just go. Let's just keep moving. Get the process. But it does make it clear. So I want to read some sections from this. Here's what I want to say about it. I've been leading writing workshops for the community since about 2002. I've done some that are specifically for sexual trauma survivors. I've done some that are specifically for queer folks. I've done some that are specifically around sex, and then I've had like comminglings of these. And I've been working on this book for a long time, and it's kind of essays, shorter essays, 31 pieces, plus an introduction, plus 2 conclusions, because I don't have any conclusions, really. And it has writing prompts, and but I'm sort of hoping that the book itself also, just like the sections are prompts, like you read a little bit, and then you have a response. You're interested, or you're pissed off about it, or whatever, and you just put it down and you start writing. And that's the best thing that I can hear from folks, if they have had that kind of response. So, I'm not going to read all of these things. I'll read some of these things. So this is from the introduction. The introduction is called How to Re-Story. And this is from a write that I actually did in a workshop in 2002. To write is to enter the mess, is to spill out all your syllables, is to double the precious eggs everyone else treads on so carefully. I'm going to pause. Here's what I want to tell you. This is a book about writing with survivors of sexual trauma. I am also a survivor of sexual trauma. There's language in here about sexual trauma. So I want you to be easy with you. I think if you hear something that's hard and you feel like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to go out. I'm going to be out for a while. I'm going to come back. I'm not offended in any way. Just be easy with you. To write is to enter the mess, is to spill out all your syllables, is to double the precious eggs everyone else treads so carefully upon. Writing opens the wound, lets in oxygen and releases pus, helps me breathe again. I mean, breathe with gills and webbed toes, breathe against the tide that's coming in, breathe through the mountains of fear I live within. To write is to enter the fuse, electricity on my lips, close the circuits, let sparks fly. To write is to see what I forgot I was thinking, is to be unstable, grammatically incorrect, metaphorically questionable. To write is to pass the words forward, to dance around old truth, to hunger with pen and ink, to kill him over and over, that he who is only saved by the unmentionings, the unsaying, the not speaking. To write is to tell about his mustached grin, the taste of his tongue, his gray belly. When I set these truths to paper, I make his monstrosity visible, familiar, one more regular old child molester. I lift up the rock he turned himself into when he lay upon me and reveal the white grasses, tiny bugs, balled up roly-polies, ants, beetles with shiny stained wings, all the life still making a way down here. Down here. To write is to go down, go in, to emerge with handfuls of something I smear on the page. I don't stop to read, reflect, reinterpret, and just stain what was empty, secrete the silented and move on with more handfuls. To write is to mix up the wheat paste and poster the neighborhoods of my frightened inside corridors with noise and mess, to blur all the boundaries, remove and muddy the sharp crease between my good girl surface and the difficult things inside. To write is to lose track of identities, to loose tense muscles around neck, shoulder, wings, belly, coccyx, thighs, to set vowels and variables into those muscles, transcribe a new calculus and slope new languages for ease to ride itself upon into this swollen, unbreakable being. This is what writing does. It marks up what we work so hard to make smooth. It pulls tight all the lines cast forth from within us, knots together past, present, future, open space and time to release the brilliant catastrophe we were meant to be. Our skin, this singular organ, contains every possibility we ever laced with might have been. And the writing sets all that possibility free, helps it step ginger or fierce into the world to discover ourselves again. This is from a section called "The Page Has Room for My Incomprehensibility." Today I don't want words, I want the juice of this river. I want to play in the garden. I want to plant new seeds and then listen to the neighborhood birds until the seeds throw up shoots. Some days it's all white butterflies and green tea. Some days it's all the dog and her orange ball and the kids screaming at the school a block away. Some days you've done enough healing. It's been years enough and you can set something down, remove the practice barrier, the training wheels, you can roll down the window and let the air in because you've done enough. You've done enough. There are more tears to come. Yep. There will be more big ache in this lifetime, but you recognize now that that's the human condition, not only about incest, not only about recovery, just the whole life fact of this existence. We don't stop crying and there is laughter in our eyes. The puppy sprawls at my feet in the shade. I let the sun take my shoulders to a dark brown, bake this oldest tension out of muscle and bone. 2014. The page has room for all this, has room for my incomprehensibility, what's belabored, for the poetry that lives inside all my pretense. The page has room for scars and scabs, the boll weevils, the torn leaves, the torn skin, the nonsense phrases, the bird calls, the butterfly with the wet and torn wing. The page has room for text messages and daydreams, the old fantasy, the hummingbird right now putting its green beak into the scarlet runner bean blossoms. It has room for wilted leaves, the gangrenous selves for the parts half-clipped and dying, has room for what's still to be resurrected and room for what he just could not figure out how to kill. The page has room for as much as you can give it and accepts it only one way, a word at a time. You can give it whatever words you want, in whatever order they arrive, but you have to stroke them out letter by letter. You give the chaotic story a bottleneck to push through and it will frame itself into a kind of sense. Write it again and the frame, the sense will be new again. You never write yourself the same way twice. The hummingbird flies overhead. You grab it out of the air, you press its luminescent feathers and rusted hinge song to the page. You open your eyes wide, wider to find more of yourself existing. You are how you see. That apple tree, how the breeze reshapes its flow around you, how you eavesdrop on the conversation between those two city birds. You are the dreams you lived and the dreams you left behind. You are everything that got you here, and you are here. They say, those voices of writerly authority, that we should write what we know. But sometimes what we know is denial and silence. What we know is discord. What we know is our words squelched or torn from our throats. So we write what we know, and we write our unknown, that which is uncertain, hazy, confusing, diffusely remembered, unrooted in us. Write what you don't know or what you don't know yet. Write what you think or imagine or wonder. Write your certainties and your fears. Write what unknowing feels like. We need a language for what it's like not to know what one's own body has done or been put through. Write the fuzziness and numbness. Write the cycling of emotions. Write exactly what happened, what you know happened, and what you don't know happened. Write the uncertain as if you were absolutely clear, and then write it full of questions and confusion. Write it grammatically incorrect, as it exists within your body, fragmented, broken, and metaphorical. Thank you. All right. I've got another couple I want to read through here. First is from a section, there are several sections. There's the introductory section, then there's a voice section, and a story section, and a witness section, and then a self-care section. And it was hard to break these all into sections because all the sections have to do with all of those things. But this is from the self-care section called This is a Ceremony. Listening to the inside languages that only your body knows is an act of intimacy with the self. Finding words for the unspeakable and then sharing those words with others, moving one more story out of isolation and back into a circle of supportive, kindred spirits is one of the most powerful healing ceremonies I've ever experienced. We were already without ceremony before we were violated. We were already without magical words, without the teas or tinctures or potions that our great-great-great-grandmothers made in the old countries or in this country before the occupation, without the dances and prayers that shifted with the season or the tides or the moon. We were without the foods that our bones were bred from. We were without the stories. Even before we were abused, even before that wretched substitute language was lifted from our mouths and replaced with a harsh, cottony silence, even before he or she or they put their bodies against our bodies and said stay and said open and said break and said silence, we did not have the ceremonies to retrieve our lost selves, and no one else did either. So we watered stuffed animals, we pounded our heels on pavement or dirt, we forced honesty out of metaphor in the lined pages of old notebooks, we opened our mouths in the new churches, but it didn't save us. So we found new ceremony to fill the places where we were stripped, where we were clear-cut, where we were starched and bleached and boiled. Some of us raised our screams in gatherings that spilled into the streets. We chanted, we banged spoons against pots, we wore denim and leather. This was a ceremony. We opened our bodies and let sex drive sensation in. This was a ceremony. We opened books with the words of other initiates who had relinquished their silence, who had dug hands into their throats and clawed out the cotton, who had found words for what was wordless. We brought their language onto our tongues, into our bellies and lungs, against the bald sides of our eyes. This was a ceremony. We ran for miles and didn't eat. This was a ceremony. We drove steel into our forearms. This was a ceremony. All these ways we worked to find ourselves again because there was no one left to tell us the old ways. We wanted to make the right magic, so our souls would finally come back and wear our skins again, move our mouths and limbs with joy, re-endow us with the capacity to taste, to sing, to stumble and bleed and get up and keep going. We stood with others whose ceremonies had been stripped the way ours were, with those whose other ceremonies lay long buried in the Middle Passage and burnt in Virginia and swung, with those whose ceremonies were burnt at the stake or drowned in the river, were driven into railroad tracks, whose ceremonies were marched over trails of tears, people whose ceremonies had gone dormant because the language to express them had been jailed and outlawed and beaten. People who had been told they didn't need ceremony. Anyway, weren't they men? After all, we stood and stumbled together. We were not enough, and we were everything. We stood together like we weren't supposed to. Every time we touched hands, touched one another, shared one more true story, we breathed a little better, and we became ceremony. Thanks for listening to this. I want to tell you that this book came out at the beginning of September, I think. It took me until last week to open it and read it. I was too terrified to open it up and find a giant misprint or a huge typo or something terribly wrong. And so I'm grateful to get to be here with us today. It's a scary thing to work with these words for such a long time and then suddenly have them out in other people's hands and you can't do anything about it. They're just in their hands, and then you got to deal with what you did. All right. How am I? 5, 10 minutes good? I have a couple more short sections. Okay. This is one of the conclusions, and it's called Begin Again. It's not too late. Begin again. There is still time to do so much of what we wanted from this life. It feels this simple. Today I don't mourn all the time I have spent writing, the books I haven't yet written, the fact that I'll never be a famous younger author, all the years I spent grieving instead of developing my craft and portfolio. Today I hold hands with all the selves I've ever been, and I am grateful we made it this far. I'm grateful we lived long enough to get right here, to get so fully into this body and these words, to get to peel off layers of mask and persona and pretense, to find our way into this place of possibility and healing. I'm grateful, God damn it, to begin again. This is what I want to say, that there's time. There's 10 minutes a day to write. There's an hour to take out the notebook and draw or play in words or jot down notes for a song. There's a half hour for a walk. There's a place for your creative experimentation and discovery. Yes, a lot of time has passed. Yes, there are days and years gone, but we still have time. Some people's journeys went faster than ours. They were able to get to the work of their dreams more quickly. There are people who underwent worse experiences than I did, worse, right, who have written their books, painted their paintings, made their work already a reality. Me, I took the time and path that I took. Today, I'm sanguine about that. Today, I'm not wallowing in regrets. Today, I am tender with gratitude that we made it here. Today, it's not too late. Today, we get to begin again. We get to do what we can today, and then begin again, tomorrow. Tomorrow, I might not be so sanguine. I almost surely won't. We'll have to wait and see. Still, you know what a big deal this is, right? To feel hope, to feel peace. I can hear the morning bird outside singing a Today song. We made it. We get this life. We begin. Blayne Stafford wrote a poem entitled For My Young Friends Who Are Afraid, which I've used many times as a prompt in writing groups. What I want to say to friends, young and otherwise, who are afraid is that our writing and the stories of our trauma, our bodies, our lives, our possibility will change. The night sweats happen and then they are gone. The same nightmare drags you through your sleep for years, and then its terrifying physics and grammar begin to change around the dreaming you. Suddenly you can speak, you can move, you can run, you can yell no, when before the only sound you could push from your lips was a moaning cry that woke you and your lover at midnight. You see from those dreamtime changes that you are healing. Your seams are coming together. It's an interminable process. It will feel never-ending, but feel every minute of it. Let the loss and terror burn through and be done with you. Someday, it will be done with you, though maybe not in the way you'd hope. This is a terrible thing that I'm recommending, I know. Write it all down, though, all of it, even the stuff you know can't be testified to in court of law, but that bulges under your tongue. Better to spit the lies they fed onto the pages of you, rather than swallow them. Now and again, you can flip back through your record, read how you have changed over 2 weeks, 2 months, 10 years. Build a bridge to your whole unsullied soul, locked safe inside you with those words. Write out all your complications, the ways you are always in conflict, the jealousies and inconsistencies and fears, and don't show it to anybody. Not at first. But be more afraid of finding out what loss looks like from the inside out. Be more afraid of losing the ability to write before you have recorded all that you are than you are of the words themselves. This is you creating your own rabbit trail. Hansel and Gretel aren't throwing down any breadcrumbs or stones for us. It's the only lily pad hopping way forward I know. Settle into the skin of confusion with your pen in hand. Stitch time out of your day just for your words. And then feed yourself well. Visit the doctor every now and again. Call the good friends, the ones who leave you alone when you're writing, the ones who don't try to fix it when you cry, and see if they want to go to the beach with you. Put down the pen and pack up a lunch. Get on the 5 Fulton without a book and watch through the bus's grimy windows as the gray concrete of the city gives way to the contagious riot of green in Golden Gate Park. Get out at the last stop and walk yourself into a thick, salty sea breeze. Feed the tides your bare feet, take your friends' dry, warm hands, hold the seagulls' cries in your newfound ears. Scary and good to bring this here to this group. This is the book thing. I don't have any to sell to you because let's have conversations about working with a publisher. But it is available in places like Barnes & Noble and Amazon. But also you can ask for it from your local independent bookstore and order it from your local independent bookstore. So, or you can talk to me because I'm getting some. So I'm happy to send them to you. Thank you. Thank you.